It started like any other quiet evening in the border town of El Paso. The desert wind whispered against the cracked windows of Maddie's place, a small roadside diner famous for its coffee, its homemade pie, and its owner, Jack Miller, a single dad who'd lost more than most men could bear. No one knew who Jack really was. Not the truckers who passed through. Not the regulars who came for his chili. Not even the local cops who nodded at him with respect. But the night a convoy of cartel SUVs rolled up and shattered that silence, they were about to learn the truth. They weren't raiding a diner. They were walking straight into the lion's den. Because Jack Miller, the quiet man who poured coffee with a smile, was once known by another name. The Ghost. The most feared operative in Delta Force history. And tonight, the Ghost was about to rise again. Chapter 1, The Quiet Before the Storm. Jack Miller lived his life with quiet purpose. Each morning began the same way, coffee brewing at 5 a.m., his daughter Maddie's laughter filling the kitchen as she chased their old golden retriever around the counter. Maddie was 11, full of light, her father's anchor after her mother's passing 3 years ago. The diner was named after her, a promise Jack had made to keep going, no matter the pain. Locals loved him. He was calm, kind, and never raised his voice. He hired veterans, gave free meals to drifters, and always had a warm word for everyone. Yet, behind those soft brown eyes lay a haunted silence. At night, when the neon lights dimmed and the desert fell quiet, Jack's mind replayed the missions no one else knew about, operations erased from records, names buried under classified ink. He was a legend in the shadows, a Delta Force operator so stealthy, so effective, that enemies whispered his code name like a ghost story. But after his wife died during childbirth complications while he was deployed overseas, Jack vanished from the military world. He walked away from everything. All he wanted now was peace. That peace shattered one dusty Tuesday evening. It began with headlights, 4 black SUVs crawling toward the diner just before closing time. Inside, Jack was cleaning up, while Maddie finished her homework in the corner booth. The first man who walked in was tall, dressed in black with tattoos creeping up his neck. The air changed. The regulars fell silent. A few slipped out quietly through the back door. "Evenin', friend," Jack greeted casually, setting down a coffee pot. "Kitchen's closing soon, but I can fix you something quick." The man smirked. "We're not here to eat, viejo." Behind him, more armed men entered, spreading across the diner. One of them locked the door. Another pulled down the blinds. Jack's heart didn't race, he'd been here before, 1,000 times, just under different circumstances. He noted their weapons, mostly untrained handling. Cheap AR-15 knockoffs. Nervous eyes. Hired muscle. Not real soldiers. Their leader leaned on the counter. "This is cartel territory now. You pay us $5,000 a week to keep your little place safe. Starting tonight." Jack said nothing for a moment. Just poured the man a cup of coffee and slid it toward him. "You should try this first," he said evenly. "It's the best in Texas." The man laughed. "You think this is a joke?" He drew his gun. Maddie gasped quietly from her booth. Jack's voice turned cold. "Son, if you're smart, you'll put that weapon away, take your friends, and drive back across the border before the coffee cools." The leader's smirk faltered. "You got no idea who you're talking to, old man." Jack met his gaze. "Neither do you." The tension snapped when one of the men shoved Jack against the counter. Maddie screamed. The sound cut through him like a blade. Something inside Jack, something he'd buried years ago, unlocked. Chapter 2, The Ghost Awakens. The next 30 seconds were chaos. Jack's movements were a blur of speed and precision that defied reason. He grabbed the attacker's arm, twisted it with surgical precision, and the gun fired into the floor. A spinning elbow sent another man crashing into a booth. Jack used the counter edge to flip his body, disarming the leader in one fluid motion before slamming him against the wall. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Just controlled fury. By the time the last shot echoed, 3 men were down, moaning in pain, and the others had fled through the back. Maddie stared in shock as her father, calm as ever, checked the door locks and turned off the lights. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" he asked gently. She nodded, trembling. "Dad, who are you?" Jack hesitated. Then he knelt and held her hands. "I'm just your dad, Maddie. That's all that matters." But the fight wasn't over. Within an hour, the cartel returned, dozens of men this time, led by El Rayo, a ruthless lieutenant known for making people disappear. They surrounded the diner, headlights cutting through the darkness. Jack knew running wasn't an option. He moved like a man who'd prepared for this all his life. Hidden panels beneath the counter revealed weapons wrapped in cloth, remnants of a past he swore never to touch again. "Maddie," he said calmly, handing her a small radio. "Go down to the storm cellar. Remember the drill." "But Dad." "No buts. Go. Now." When the first bullet hit the windows, the ghost returned in full. What followed wasn't a fight, it was a masterclass in tactical warfare. Jack used darkness, reflections, and sound to his advantage. He moved silently between shadows, taking out men one by one, no wasted shots, no noise. His mind was ice, his body an instrument of precision. By the time the sun began to rise, the diner stood in ruins, but Jack stood alive. Sirens wailed in the distance. The surviving cartel members fled, dragging their wounded into the desert. Maddie ran out and hugged her father, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, they'll come back." Jack looked out at the horizon, eyes steely but soft. "Not for a long time," he said quietly. "Word travels fast. They'll know now that the ghost is still out here." He looked down at his daughter. "And he's got something to protect." Epilogue. Weeks later, the diner reopened. Word of what happened spread quietly through town, though no one could prove a thing. Locals just said the cartel never came back. Some whispered that the man who owned Maddie's place wasn't ordinary, that he was a soldier from a storybook, watching over the town like a silent guardian. And every night, as the neon sign flickered back to life, Jack Miller would stand at the window, coffee in hand, watching the desert stars. He'd found his peace again. Not because he escaped his past, but because he finally accepted it. "You can bury a ghost," he whispered, "but you can't kill what it protects."